Hello guys, my name is Eric Rodriguez. I am a creature designer for film and TV. Today I'm going to be showing a painting method that I use to paint maquettes. This is one of my creatures, pretty colorful character and such. So I'll show some of the process and some what I kind of do to kind of get to a final stage. So right here at this point in time, I'm actually I have several colors on the creature itself. I usually go with like 3 to 4 colors I mix. So I'm using yellow, and I also mix them a little bit with this matte medium, so it kind of gives it a little bit translucent. And I'm prepping. Right now, I'm also start doing a spatter with a cut in half chip brush, and I usually do all this all around the piece, just to give it breakage from all those colors that I added, the base colors. And I usually sometimes it's kind of like a ink base paint, and I mix it with 99% alcohol. And if you do several of these like passes, what happens is you start breaking the color that you kind of see there. You can see the blues and purples and yellows, but when you keep adding this brown ink color, it'll give you some more breakage. And obviously, what I like to use is a lot of reference. So I reference nature all the time. And yet again, I'm showing you the matte medium that I use. It's from Liquitex. I usually mix that. So what I end up doing nowadays is kind of, once I do one pass of color, I add a little water to that and I spray it so it seals it right away. And the next coat that's coming in the next couple of layers, it'll be covered and it doesn't smear or anything like that. So I'm always protecting each layer that I do, which is a method I've been using for quite a bit, and it works well, especially in maquettes anyway. So I'm doing like a overspray again I spray it all around, and kind of let it sit. I let it cure for a bit, and I start continue the next layer and the next layer of colors. And right now I'm using Iwata. I usually use the Iwata double action. This is this is like workhorses, and you can do some great detail on them as well. So as you can see, I keep turning the actual maquette. And what I like to do is I want to make sure I cover every nook and cranny of the piece. It's a little pretty complicated. It's got six hands, and it's got the little kind of crest by the head. So I want to make sure I cover every portion of the piece. So this ensures that that layer that I did a spatter, what you call spatter, and it's actually sealed. And I could start doing some more washes, because I go from airbrush to washes and such. So it's a back and forth type of paint job. So now here I get like I think it's like a teal green, and I start painting some in like the creases. And I don't go heavy. I mean, I go pretty light, pretty translucent, because you don't need to go super heavy. I mean, I'm trying to mimic nature. I'm trying to make these like tropical iguanas that I've seen that I really thought they were pretty unique looking. So like I said, you don't need too much. You don't need to over saturate the piece, because then it looks too, I don't know, it gives it this really kind of flat look, not translucent. So, and here I'm using I think it's like a pretty thin round brush. Obviously, this is a little tedious because you have to make sure every nook and cranny is taken care of. So as you can see here, I'm actually going on each crease, and as you can see, you can really see it, but it's there. And so when you start, doing layer after layer, it just starts getting buildup of color, and it just starts mutating. And obviously, you'll see the overall piece once we're done here. We'll do like show the end product of the paintwork. And I always tell people, always get references from nature. I never sculpt or paint without any references. I think that's super important. I think a lot of people don't get to do that, and what happens is it really, those colors become very redundant, and we've probably seen them a million times. So Always go back to nature and what exists, because that's what you kind of mimic. So I'm still kind of dabbling. So I'm using, I think here I'm using green as well still. So I'm using like a green wash of ink and 99% alcohol mixture, and I'm trying to cover all the wrinkles on those hands. You don't see it, but there's so many wrinkles on those hands that I want to make sure I get coverage on it. And you'll see like on a finished piece as well. It has a little costume and everything. So, I mean, I try to make like these creatures to be super realistic, like it would exist in an ecosystem, and that's always my train of thought. And my background's a painter. I went to school at the Art Center in Pasadena as a painter, so that's kind of like my illustration background. So I've been a painter for a long time. So this kind of takes me back to the basics, kind of in a way. And so here I'm going back again. Like I said, it's kind of like I use several tools. This is the airbrush once again, and I'm doing like what we call modeling. So you do these kind of little veiny patterns. I mean, obviously not everywhere, but where it's visible, it's always good to have. And I do these little dots. And these little dots, what happens is that you break the skin very well. And yet again, an iguana, especially the one I was referencing at this point, had a bunch of little dots everywhere. So I was trying to stick to that, to that element. And obviously you can't. The whole point of painting is you don't have to go dark. I think you always have to go like very translucent and light. But what starts, when you start doing layer and layer upon layer, then you're building up a tremendous color, and you start mutating the colors, and that's when you kind of have like a unique color, and and it looks more organic and more believable. Like I said, I've been using airbrush for a long time, since probably 90 or something, 91. I used to airbrush helmets back in the day in high school, so kind of very savvy with it, and kind of could do so many cool details with it now. And at this point, I think I was using like a dark, I think it was like a dark purple, almost mauve color. And like I said, I like doing these really odd colors. I mean, colors that you haven't seen before. That it's kind of like I always like, make sure that it's a very unique looking coloration. I think to me that's important. I mean, I've done, creatures and bodysuits and, and humanoids and that kind of thing. And sometimes, my personal work, or something where they hire me to do creature effects, I get to paint my own work, then I really try to make something unique to the table. I'm always pushing myself. And you can see, yet again, I'm going all around, the piece. So it's not just in one place. You have to keep going all around to make sure that there's a continuity on the paintwork. And that's what you see me keep turning the piece around, and always like, it's about the little details, I think, that makes unique characters, and and attention to detail. So I'm adding some around like the eye sockets. He's got these little nostril things like in the middle of his forehead. So I'm kind of adding a little of that red, purple color. So and I stay with it. So to me, I always feel like the face is always a big thing. But it's obviously it's everywhere. But and I keep switching the light. I mean I don't know how people work without light. I think light for me when I'm painting is always a big thing with me. I mean, the lighting will show me, where I've missed a spot or not. So it's important to have good lighting when you're painting like this. And so yeah, it's kind of like I'm kind of moving. If you see my hand, it keeps moving back and forth. And so I'm creating these little patterns, almost like veiny patterns, but super light. And obviously in the industry we call it modeling. I'm kind of modeling, but you can always see my hand kind of movement back and forth. It's never a one steady movement. And here you can see I'm doing dots. So I usually do dots too, to break even more the skin. And you can kind of see like that, that previous color, which was that green. You kind of see that green hue coming together again now. And obviously this is, it takes time. I mean, usually it takes about at least like, I would say 12 to 15 hours of paint work. It's constant push and pull and make sure that we have make sure there's the color that I want that matches the base colors. So I mean, it's a method, to be painting like this. So I'm always also constantly like making sure that I have mixture on my paint, on my airbrush, and and I keep going and make sure I have the right mix of colors. And the piece ends up, I mean, like I said, right, you'll see a bunch of the steps, the process that I do take in order to paint. And the eyes became more of this more frog-like alien kind of creature. Right now, they don't have any color whatsoever. And I usually use it in epoxy to give it this really good sheen color, eye sheen to it. And obviously, I don't do that everywhere. I just do that mainly on the on the eyes and the mouth region. So I'm going on the arms. As here, I'm always like back and forth. Like I said, it's always like a push and pull here. This guy has like four, 2 legs and 4 hands. I have to make sure that every nook and cranny has that color, so there's continuity, and then it's not just spots only red in certain spots only. So, and yet again, I'm going back to, I keep looking at the reference when I'm painting this creature. I'm always constantly having the reference on my computer, and it's good to have something like that always available, when you're painting something or sculpting, so either or. I always have tons of reference available. And like I said, I prefer painting in ink. The actual like base colors were actually like were acrylic mixed with some matte medium to just give it more of a translucent. It gives it more bite too to the resin. So I keep constantly moving back and forth, and if I feel I miss a spot, I go back and and touch it up and add some of the modeling into it. Obviously, you don't want to do this everywhere, but I mean, you do want to do it all around though. And I'm doing super light, so you can't really tell. Obviously, if we zoom in, on the final piece, you will be able to tell that all the colors that have been infused from layer to layer on the piece. And this is an actual piece that was actually shown at the Hive Gallery for this was November show. I think it was November show. It was part of this big, huge sculpture show that it's that we show every year over there. And also, I think we end up putting also costuming on this character, which I think is super important. I mean, for me anyway, that's kind of my style. That's kind of my goal at times is to bring a full character on, and I think clothing that does that quite a bit. So you see some of the orange there I kind of did with the with the round brush. So right here what I'm actually starting to do, and you can see me kind of, this is a super fine detail brush. I think it's a 001. I'm adding I think it's brown. It's a brown color to it. And you can start kind of seeing, if you look closely to the piece, the base coat has almost been infused with all the layers now. And you could kind of see a little bit more organic, it looks more organic to me. I mean, you gotta feel more, it's a one whole coloration. Even though there's several colors involved, it just feels more cohesive now. Like every color blends in with the purple blends in with the actual teal, and the teal blends in with the yellow, and that kind of thing. And it's because of the layering, obviously. I think overall there was about 11 layers on this piece, and those little fat deposits and those little wrinkle rolls. I'm kind of accentuating them a little bit with this. So the wash that I'm actually applying is it's oil-based paint with a little bit of naphtha. So it looks kind of like dirty water, but I mean that makes the piece look much more organic. It just gives it more lived in, more like it's been on like kind of a terrain or on a tropical island or something like that. So there's it gives it good weathering. And obviously I don't put it everywhere, but I do put it where I think it should need it, like where it needs it, like in big forms, like on the eyes, and and you see on the belly there as well, you kind of see a little bit. And I don't go super heavy on it because you don't need to, but I do put layers on it though. I mean, I see like right there on that lighting, like you kind of see a bit. And obviously, I'm always going back to my reference, but I've studied the reference so much that I kind of have it engraved in my mind at this point. So I'm kind of going on autopilot here. But I mean, I'm still turning the maquette, left and right, and trying to get all those little nook and crannies that I feel need to be addressed. Yeah, you can see in this kind of profile look where all these, I mean, from when I started to now, I mean, I think I'm in like 9 layers at this point, and I'll do like a couple more after this. But you can see a variation of colors now. I think that was the goal here for me to kind of to cover that initial base coats and to make it one unique cohesive paint job. And I go back and forth. I mean, because you think this one has so many wrinkles. I mean, it was kind of just, it was quite a detailed piece, just because it's kind of like a very very worm-like kind of silkworm looking body and and texture. And you kind of see that where I'm actually applying this like brown. I think it's what is this, burnt sienna? I think it's burnt sienna with naphtha. And the whole thing is it's not super dark because I don't want to make it dark because I think when you make it too dark it looks too fake. So I want to make sure that it's kind of light, but it adds that certain texture to it. So I'm kind of taking care of the belly now, and kind of focusing in back in the hand wrinkles. I mean the wrist wrinkles there. And I'm kind of painting, but also I'm like blending at the same time. So I paint and then I blend. So that's kind of like the technique I'm using here. I paint and I blend. But overall, you get to see like you get a feel of like the process that I use to paint these maquettes. I mean, some of these are super intricate that I really need to focus and kind of make get the right reference to achieve some of these paint jobs. And I study a lot of reference. Believe me, I have tons of books and internet files and that kind of thing. I think I have like 10,000 reference on everything. Between like mammals and fishes and ants and bugs and that kind of thing. I kind of like the orange, hands. I thought that was kind of a little different, but also unique looking to the creature, and it kind of pops a little bit, and you'll see it on the overall finished piece. I mean, obviously here's just sections of like the process of the paintwork. And now we're focusing a little bit on the actual like on the piece itself. You kind of could see a bit. See how it has like almost like this like coat of brown kind of. That's the actual. So you can see it there. You see I'm kind of, and I'm blending in the so it kind of is very drippy, but then I'm blending back in onto the piece itself. Obviously this is resin. I'm trying to make it look translucent as much as possible. And you achieve that by doing layer after layer. So here you can kind of see the vest that that was made for it. We're doing a test fitting on him, and it's custom made to his body. So as you can see, you got to keep kind of back and forth. You got to make sure that I have always visuals of what the costume looks like. So we're able to the idea that I have in my mind, and I want to convey it out in to reality. So. And that's Sean. She's a great costume designer. She's cool. In miniature stuff, she's awesome. And that is my supplies, I think. And on the camera, there's Tyler, steady hand man. So you kind of see a little bit what we're doing. Something very unique looking on the actual vest. So I hope this helps. I know people have had told me how, what's your method of paint work, and so this is the method that I usually use from a small piece to a big piece. So hope this helps you guys, and you see a little real-time scenario, real maquette that I from beginning to end on how I paint maquettes. Thanks guys for for watching this video, and stay tuned. There'll be more videos to come about.